clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and you're about to listen to a sleep hypnosis session all about helping you have a sense of calm and clarity. And it's designed to do two things. One, help you have a really good night's sleep. And secondly, have suggestions that make you feel that those things that you've been worrying about, those what-if questions about things going horribly wrong, actually instead gives you a feeling that whatever comes up, you can handle it, and actually give you this feeling of resilience and calm and optimism that even if life throws some difficult things, you've got the resources to manage it. And by the way, it's better to believe that and be wrong than believe that things are going to go horribly wrong and be right. So therefore, this is a much better belief system, even if you believe that everything's going to be fine. But the key caveat is that if something happens, you have the resources to handle it. And that's a very important suggestion, because that is the suggestion of resilience, rather than what if this horrible thing happens and you can't handle it, is exactly the thought structure of anxiety. So if you get anxious, if you worry about things while you're sleeping, I think you're going to get some value from this session. And if you want something created just for you, check out my website, adamcox.co.uk, or have a look in the description for various links and resources that might help you in a different way. But for now, find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in that wonderful feeling of calm and relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow yourself to feel that you have permission to feel whatever you feel. There is no obligation to feel relaxed if you're not relaxed, to try and create stress or anxiety if your body doesn't need it. In the same way that you can't change the seasons or change the weather, just imagine that sometimes emotions come up and emotions go away. And not once has any emotion been permanent. All emotions are temporary. And you've experienced thousands of emotions, and not once has any emotion been impossible to manage. You managed every single one, and therefore all emotions are temporary, and all emotions are manageable. And the more you think about that, the truer it becomes. And sometimes, the moment you evaluate something as manageable and temporary, it has a very different connotation. The big scary monster becomes the little mouse running away. The thing that was haunting you now becomes as meaningless as a shadow, knowing that it exists but has no power over you. So as you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to imagine a time when you fell asleep in a place where it might be more challenging to fall asleep. Maybe in an uncomfortable chair in a public place. But I want you to imagine that you are observing you rather than reliving the moment. Float back to back then and see yourself moments before you drifted off. And maybe there were clues. Your eyelids started getting heavier, or you were blinking more often, or the muscles in your neck just lost their ability to keep your head up and you nodded downwards, maybe more than once. And as you observe that version of you, you can't help but come to a conclusion that if you can sleep there, you can sleep anywhere. Because that wasn't the best place to sleep. And yet you were falling asleep anyway. And that is because sometimes the best way to fall asleep is not to try at all. To just allow your body to do what your body is already capable of doing. And when you see that version of you nodding off into that deep sleep in the most inappropriate of places, I want you to float into that version of you and feel connected with the idea that you can drift off into deep relaxation, an inward space, even if people are around. But imagine you're having a dream of being in the most comfortable bed that's ever been created. Let's go from the worst place to sleep to the very best place to sleep. And I want you to imagine that your bed is in a quiet place, the temperature just right, fresh air. Imagine no loud sounds around. Imagine privacy. Even imagine the materials conducive to making you feel safe and relaxed. You might imagine Egyptian cotton, silk sheets, soft duvets, a fragrance linked to relaxation. And as I count down from 5 to 1, I want you to imagine a dream within a dream. There you are in that uncomfortable place, dreaming that you're in a place that is perfect. And then imagine 5 getting more relaxed, 4, eyelids heavier, 3, drifting deeper now, 2, and 1, drifting in a dream deeper still. And I want you to imagine that in that dream you can allow any thoughts to come up that might feel real or not real. But isn't it strange that when you're dreaming, it all feels real, whether it makes sense or not? It's only when you awake, you even have a clue that it was just a dream. And one of the strange things about sleep is that the harder someone tries to make it happen, the further away it seems to drift. And what if sleep is something that arrives when you make less effort? And so for now, the goal is not to sleep. It's just to imagine a dream within a dream based on the idea of sleeping, giving yourself the simple permission to just rest and relax. And there's been times in your life that something was difficult because there was pressure. And the same thing without this pressure became easy. When you remove the pressure, it changes everything. So breathe in a feeling of relaxation, exhale any tension. Dreaming within a dream within a dream. And many people discover something curious about anxiety. That often it's not the anxiety itself. Linked to something, it's the anxiety about the idea of being anxious that creates the very anxiety you're looking to avoid. Thoughts like, what if I feel anxious? What if I can't sleep? What if tomorrow is ruined because I can't get to sleep? And what if that prompts the mind to try to solve a problem that hasn't actually happened yet? And the not knowing if you can solve a problem that hasn't happened creates more anxiety about what will happen if you can't, which creates more tension, which creates more awareness, which creates the very physiological reactions the mind was trying to avoid, like a loop. You've seen it once or twice, where a microphone gets too close to a speaker and creates that horrible feedback loop. Something feeding on something creates a horrible screech. But loops can be broken. And one of the simplest ways is to stop fighting the experience. Anxiety is not an enemy. It's just information. A signal, a prompt, a messenger. Within that dream within a dream, I want you to imagine a giant pendulum swinging. And on one side of the pendulum are the things you control, like your breathing, your choices, your perspective. And when it swings the other way, on the other side, are all those things you cannot control. Other people's thoughts, the exact moment that sleep arrives, tomorrow's outcomes that you don't control. And sometimes anxiety appears when the mind tries to control the side of the pendulum that was never meant to be controlled. Peace does not come from controlling everything. Peace comes from knowing what doesn't require control. If you can't control it, then accept it. And focus your attention on controlling those things that you can control. And sleep is one of those things you can influence, but never quite control. Sleep comes when the body realizes there is no problem left to solve, or that can be solved right now. And when you accept that there's nothing that needs to be done, quite often, the problem-solving part of the brain just drifts off to the very sleep that you will be joining it. And I wonder if you can imagine, just for a moment, that anxiety is not a problem. Imagine instead that anxiety is simply a signpost, a quiet nudge from the mind saying, something here deserves attention. Not panic, not alarm, just curiosity. And when anxiety is treated as a signpost rather than a threat, something positively unusual happens. The emotional intensity reduces because the mind no longer needs to shout. It can become more subtle. And I wonder if it could have a new meaning. Some of the most insightful people in the world developed their understanding because they were sensitive, because they noticed things, because they reflected deeply. Anxiety often belongs to people who care, people who think, people who imagine possibilities. And what if those same abilities can be tamed and harnessed to become strengths? The ability to notice emotions creates empathy, and the ability to imagine outcomes creates creativity. The ability to reflect creates wisdom. Anxiety does not have to mean suffering. It can mean awareness. And awareness can become anything you choose it to be. Awareness can be expression, freedom, curiosity, even excitement or challenge. And what if anxiety became a challenge to figure out a new way of thinking about the thing itself? Where focus goes, energy flows. What if anxiety becomes a puzzle? Or that signpost? Or that challenge? And sooner or later, you will want to feel the anxiety. Because when you respond to it, once you solve the puzzle, and that puzzle is solved, or once you accomplish the challenge or interpret the signpost, then that same anxiety becomes elusive because you've already met the underlying need. And you may remember that there are situations where calmness comes naturally. Moments where the mind feels capable. Situations where you trust yourself. I want you to think of times when you're helping others. Maybe it's when you're mediating difficult conversations, or doing something social where you feel relaxed, letting loose, or resourceful. And those experiences aren't just memories. They prove something irrefutable. That the ability to remain calm, to give things a meaning that works for you, already exists within. It simply appears more easily when the mind believes it has options. And the same options exist here. You can rest, you can think, you can lie quietly, and you can even detach from the anxiety, observing it like clouds in the sky or leaves on a stream, and still be completely safe. There's an old idea that pain is inevitable but suffering is optional. Pain is simply sensation, but suffering is the story we attach to it. And I want you to imagine that you will give new stories to anxiety that mean that even if they come along, you consider them temporary, manageable, and dare I say it, even useful to help you grow, evolve, become more resilient. Because when you know how to tame anxiety, to make it work for you rather than against you, it becomes an ally rather than an enemy. The next time anxiety appears, set yourself the challenge to get as curious as possible. And you know the sounds attached to curiosity. You know the thinking noise is like, And notice how difficult it is to feel curious and anxious at the same time. The more curious you become, the more elusive anxiety is. But you might catch the tail of it before it goes, to give it a new meaning or learn something valuable, to make it work for you. And while you're there in a dream within a dream within a dream, you now have choices. Very soon I will count from 1 to 10. And if you desire to awake, when I reach the number 10, you will awaken. But if you desire, because the timing is right, to drift into an even deeper sleep, then when I count from 1 to 10, it will give you permission to transition into deep, rejuvenating, wonderful, relaxing sleep. And you will only awake at the appropriate time when you've got the sleep that you need. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.